right, and good afternoon. I'd like to welcome and introduce Dr. Robert Murphy, Executive Director of the Institute for Global Health and the John Philip Fair Professor of Infectious Diseases here at Northwestern's Feinberg School of Medicine, who answers your COVID questions here on the Institute for Global Health's Facebook page. Today, Dr. Murphy will be answering viewer-submitted questions that we've received through the 14th of September, yesterday, and we invite you to continue to submit your questions to us via Facebook at NU Institute for Global Health or via email at globalhealthinstitute@northwestern.edu. And leading the discussion today is Vinay Derbakula, an intern this summer with the Institute. And so, Vinay, I now turn it over to you.
Thank you, Kristen. So we'll start today, as we always do, with some basic updates on the US COVID rate, as well as Illinois' positivity rate and vaccination rate. In the United States, we continue to see a gradual increase in the vaccination rate, as last week we were sitting at around 51.8%. Today, we're sitting at around 52.2%. While the rate is not increasing at a rapid pace, it is still increasing. That is what the most important thing is. We want to continue to see more and more people who are available to get the vaccine actually get the vaccine itself. But then, looking at the per day positivity rate of the United States, it's sitting at 145,724 cases per day. This is a drastic decrease from what we were looking at last week, which was 152,000. And so what that shows is that all in all, in the last week, the country has seen a dramatic reduction in the cases, hopefully a sign of things to come. Then looking at the state of Illinois, the vaccination rate also continues to increase, and it's sitting at 51.6%. So while the average vaccination rate is less than the United States, it's still showing that gradual increase, which is the most important thing. Then looking at the per day positivity rate that we see in Illinois, we're getting about 3,762 cases, a drop from the 4,000 we saw last week. In comparison to states like Florida, which sit at 15,606, and Texas, which sit at 17,000, Illinois looks a lot better. However, for those living in Florida and Texas, it's really important to know that the cases in Florida and Texas per day are also dropping at a significant rate. Whereas in Florida, we were sitting at 20,000 last week. Today, we're sitting at 15,000. And so all in all, some pretty good news around the country. And it brings up the question, are we turning a curve? So we'll start with some also basic headlines. The first one is basically for kids under 12. The FDA currently is not urging parents to seek out COVID vaccines for children under 12. Some parents have done that. It's not safe at the moment for children, not small adults, to take the vaccine. And so, Dr. Murphy, I was just curious, is there a timetable set for children under 12 to be getting this vaccine?
Well, the studies have been done, or they're just finishing up right now with thousands of children in the studies. And so they'll look and see really what these risks are. We know in general that the vaccines are safe. But, we want to see in kids, do they have unusual reactions like this myocarditis or anything like that? And they'll calculate those rates and do a risk-benefit analysis. Is the risk of having one of these rare but serious side effects worth the benefit of avoiding COVID in a kid? And generally, kids don't get that sick, but it's not 100%. Some of them do get very sick, and plus they continue the spread of the virus in the families and the communities. So that study review is expected sometime in October, and then a decision likely to be made in November is what the recent information that I heard. And actually even today in the news, they said by Halloween, so October 31st. So sometime at the end of October, beginning of November, or sometime in November, we should find out if this is going to be approved for kids.
Got it. And so that's some pretty compelling information. But then couple that with the question, are we turning a curve? Well, statistics came out a couple of days ago, and they are pretty compelling as well. From last week, we're about 12% down in cases, and in the last 2 weeks, we're about 14% down in terms of positive cases. And so, Dr. Murphy, would you say that these statistics are pretty accurate in terms of showing us that we may be turning a curve here?
Yes, I mean, we have to look at none of the statistics are perfect. None of the numbers are perfect. The number of cases, the number of tests, even with the number of tests, now you have all these over-the-counter tests. You don't even know what the results of those are. How do you include them in the whole equation here? We don't really know. So, and then there was some controversy about the hospitalization rate, and that many of the people that are being admitted to the hospital are less sick than they were at the beginning. But there's a lot of reasons for that. One, they didn't, especially in the Northeast, they didn't have the beds to admit them. And so you had to be really sick to get in the hospital. All this comes into play. And then there's the death rate. The death rate with COVID, you know, we don't know, did COVID cause the death? Did COVID contribute to the death? How do we count those cases? So epidemiologists are used to questions like this. And the thing is, it's just nothing perfect. You have to look at the whole picture. Number of new cases, number of hospitalizations, number of ICU admissions, number of people on ventilators, and number of deaths. You know, there are ways to gather that information, but you have to look at the whole picture together. I mean, nobody doubts that there isn't a crisis going on right now, and that it looks like, however faulty the numbers are, or let's call them imperfect. They're not faulty, really, they're imperfect. They're getting better, even in Florida. So why would Florida be getting better, especially since they don't do any mitigation, you know, no mandated mitigation at all, really. And it's up to like individuals basically to take care of themselves there. Well, they've reached some kind of immunity level in that state, because they actually do have a high vaccination rate, much higher than the other states in the South, like Alabama and Louisiana, Arkansas, those places. And so, you know, and we've seen through the whole pandemic, peaks, the first peak, the second peak, the third peak, and this is technically the fourth peak. They all go up and then they all go down. And that's a combination of mitigations and just the way, just the pattern of how the disease spread. So the mitigations and the base immunity in the at-risk people. What is clear is that the unvaccinated are driving these waves. They're 10 times more likely to be hospitalized, 11 times more likely to die, 5 times more likely to get infected. And that's all changed because of Delta. It used to be even greater, but now those are the numbers that we have to live with.
Yeah. And then for all the Chicago area listeners, some questions just generally about how is Chicago doing? And so, yeah, go ahead.
Doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Very good. It's like the best part of the state. You know, they got good public health there. The people are following the guidelines, and you know, I think there's a nice rapport with the Department of Public Health in Chicago and the people. It's working.
Yeah. And then just some brief headlines around the state. News came out this morning that areas in southern Illinois have reported no more ICU space in terms of their beds. And so do you think that could potentially kind of transition upwards into the city, or is that kind of going to stay more south of Illinois?
Well, southern Illinois encompasses all the counties basically south of the Mason-Dixon line, but they're in the state of Illinois. There's about 400,000 people. The counties don't have a lot of people in each county. So it's a basically rural, small town area with a very southern kind of history. And they're going along with that region of Illinois is behaving more like Arkansas and Tennessee than it is Chicago and Cook County and some of the other parts in central and northern Illinois. And their vaccination rate is incredibly low. I mean, they have counties down there less than 20% vaccinated. I mean, it's just really incredible. And that's why they're doing so poorly. Now they have no ICU beds. If somebody needs an ICU, they have to ship them either out of the state or into central or northern Illinois to get treated. And a lot of them don't make it.
Yep. And then the last thing to bring up is just some reports have been out there about people starting to transition towards using ivermectin as a solution in their own minds to the COVID crisis. And so I'm just curious, what is ivermectin, and B, is it a viable treatment?
Yeah. I'll start with the latter part. It is not a viable treatment. Nobody should do it. The studies have been done. There's absolutely no positive impact with ivermectin. Placebo-controlled studies doesn't work, okay? Now, the drug has been used for worm disease in animals and in humans and for many years. It's an old drug, been around for a long time. And, you know, there were some initial claims, same kind of story that hydroxychloroquine had, you know, where there's little studies and, you know, they said, oh, it works. And it turned out a lot of those studies were fraudulent. There actually was false data actually put to promote ivermectin. That was coming primarily from very hardcore anti-vaccine groups that want to tell people, oh, you don't have to take the vaccine because there's treatment out here. Yeah. I mean, the treatment is fraudulent. It does not work. So, I mean, and then the stuff you can buy online and stuff is for animals. Right. You know, so there have been overdoses of people and it doesn't work. You know, there's 3 companies out there making actually antiviral drugs. All right. All of them are over a year behind in the development because everybody's focusing on the vaccines and everything else. That's where they should put the pressure. That's where they should give the push. Now, I know the Biden administration has put $3 billion into the faster development of these oral drugs. Many people have heard of Tamiflu, the drug used for flu. It's kind of the same concept as that. You can give it to somebody who's just been exposed to somebody with the viral infection, or you can give it to them right as they get diagnosed and symptomatic, and they're likely to work. So 2 of those companies are in the later stage of development. Maybe they're going to have a product within 6 months. And the third one is a little bit further back. Maybe they're going to be ready in about a year. That's where we should be focusing, not this stuff like ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, you know, and these old rehabilitated AIDS drugs that have really they don't work. They don't work for COVID. COVID's a different virus.
Yeah. And now we can transition to our viewer questions.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll start with the first one. Some people are asking, they got their antibodies test and they're immune. However, they had said that in the past, you may have mentioned that if you are immune, you have the antibodies, you no longer need the vaccine. Is that still the case?
Yeah, so I'm not sure when this person is talking about. They say they got tested in September. It must be 2020. Or no, this is, I had antibodies tested September 2021, and the person has antibody. That means that they were if they hadn't taken the vaccine yet. And that means that they have some immunity. We don't know how much, all right? And we know that after infection, the level of immunity from patient to patient varies significantly and tends to drop off. So it's not forever immunity. Matter of fact, early on in the epidemic, when we didn't have any treatment or vaccines or anything, we started seeing new infections among people that had it after about 3 months. And so it's not enough. Now, it turns out those people, if they take the vaccine, they get a super response. They're called hybrid patients for some reason. Anyway, they get, you know, because they have antibodies from the disease and then they get antibodies from the vaccine. Those people have 6 to 100 times higher neutralizing antibody levels than people that didn't have the disease. So, I mean, that's very new information from just last week. So, you know, those people, this person now should definitely get the vaccine. They'll do very, very well with the vaccine. And it might be enough immunity to protect them from the nasty variants like Delta. So, I mean, that's theoretical. We have to see if that really pans out. But, you know, you're going to get a very robust response from the vaccine if you've had COVID in the past.
Yeah. And then next question is regarding an unfortunate family who is entirely vaccinated. However, all five of the members have been tested positive since. And one of the brothers is actually on a ventilator. And so I think they were just a little curious and concerned. Why are people getting breakthrough cases? Is there a reason? Is the vaccine 100% effective?
Yeah, the vaccine is not 100% effective. They were never 100% effective, all right? The Pfizer and Moderna vaccines came out with 90 to 95% efficacy, all right? That's still 5 to 10% didn't work, all right? So we know that. Now, with Delta changed the game here because the vaccines work, but they don't work as good with Delta, and particularly in people over 65 years of age, older people. And then if you have any underlying medical condition, of course, if you get it, you got a higher risk. So this is very unfortunate what's happening with this family here. I feel so sad for them. I mean, everyone's vaccinated. They're sitting around. COVID gets into the equation, and one guy's on a ventilator. So these vaccines are not perfect, but that doesn't mean on the population level they don't work. It's been very clearly stated just within the last 2 weeks from the CDC that they put up all the studies together. With the vaccine, you're 5 times less likely to get infected, 10 times less likely to get admitted to the hospital, and 11 times less likely to die from COVID. But that's a risk reduction, but that's not down to zero.
Right.
Keep that in mind. So it's very unfortunate for this family. I feel so sorry for them. The same thing happened at the Provincetown July 4th event where everybody was vaccinated and all these people got it. It's the same thing there. So unfortunately, with the Delta variant, it's much easier to transmit, and the vaccinated people can transmit it also. So more effectively than the previous variants. So it's unfortunate, but the vaccines still work. They just don't work as good.
The next question is just regarding the confusion that is going on with the booster shots. If someone is immunocompromised and they're looking to get their 3rd booster shot, they've heard that it's not actually approved. Is that really the case?
No, it's a little bit semantics here, and that's just part of the confusion. So for an immunocompromised person, it was in August that the emergency use authorization was extended. Another dose was approved to give to people like this. That's actually considered part of the regimen. In other words, if you have an immunocompromise, you're on some steroids or you're on some medicine that suppresses the immune system, like you had a kidney transplant or something like that, really immunocompromised, that already got approved in August of this year. And that's just another dose. So instead of getting 2 doses for the Moderna and Pfizer, you get 3. So boosters are for like everybody. All right, everyone's going to get a booster shot at some particular point. Maybe as early as next Monday, it might get approved. So it's a little bit semantics difference because people use booster in different contexts. But this person already is EUA approved, and they can walk into any pharmacy. They have to sign an attestation that says they're immunocompromised, and the pharmacist there will give them the shot, or they can go to some place that's giving the vaccine out and just say they're immunocompromised. They are covered under that emergency use authorization. Whereas the regular booster, like for you and me, we're going to go get our booster shot after 8 months after our 2nd dose. That is not approved yet. We expect approval on Monday.
Okay. And then another question, just bouncing off that booster idea. Someone who's getting who got a J&J shot is wondering, can they be switching over to Pfizer and Moderna boosters simply because there hasn't been a lot of info about the J&J booster, if that is even needed in the first place?
So there's been a lot of it. Fortunately, this is a tough question because nobody really knows the answer, and the guidelines are very unclear. So the Johnson & Johnson has a couple studies going on, one with giving 2 doses instead of the 1. Remember, it's a single dose shot. But they have a 60,000 person study out there somewhere where they gave 2 shots, 1 shot 2 months after the first one. So that should be coming out soon, those results. Then as far as a booster goes, like, 8 months after your J&J shot, remember, they got approved late. They didn't get approved till March. So, it's going to be, in sometime in November, those people would be 8 months out. If it's 8 months is going to be the way to go. Now, the J&J vaccine is not as effective in preventing disease, just infection, but it is effective in preventing hospitalization and death. What many people are doing, and this is not a formal recommendation, is just saying, you had the J&J vaccine 8 months ago, just get a booster with the vaccine that's available to you. And so that would be the Moderna or the Pfizer. So Moderna will likely be approved for this booster thing in October. And very likely the Pfizer one will be approved next Monday.
It's just regarding a 65-year-old female who has psoriasis, and she's on medications for it, and she's wondering, are the vaccines in general, she's asking specifically about the flu, COVID, pneumonia, and shingles, are they safe for her to be taking, and should she be taking them?
Yeah, they're safe. They probably won't work as well, but they're safe and she should take them.
Okay. And then the next question is, a large group is looking, they signed up for a bus trip in June. It's going to happen in October. They're heading to places like Tennessee and Kentucky, and no one is required to get vaccinated on the bus or on this trip. Only masks are required, and so they're kind of just wondering if they're going to museums and dinner shows and stuff like that. Should they cancel the trip?
This is a bad time to take this kind of trip for people who are in their 70s who have diabetes. I would not go.
Got it. And the last question is just someone who's experiencing an unusual reaction to the Pfizer vaccine. They were mentioning that they had unusually high blood pressure as a result of it, and they're already on meds to control their blood pressure. And so they're wondering if they should be taking any supplements when they take their third dose, or is this like a normal reaction to the vaccine?
Well, it's a very unusual reaction. I mean, typically people get more shocky, the blood pressure goes down. So this is a strange thing. This person is monitoring themselves very closely. That's great. But this should not be a contraindication to taking taking a booster shot or a third shot, whatever. However, it's so unusual, and this person has it so well documented, they should fill out a VAERS form. This is the form I've talked about in the past that the FDA has. Anybody can submit a VAERS form, VAERS, right directly to the FDA. Either the doctor can do it, or you can do it yourself. You fill the form out and you send it into the FDA, and they will compile it, because we haven't heard of reactions like this, but we're not going to hear about them if they happen very rarely, unless people start reporting it and it gets reported in the FDA. So this can be very valuable information. So I suggest they do that, but I also suggest that that's not enough to not take another booster shot.
Awesome. Well, that's all we have in terms of questions for today. Thank you so much, Dr. Murphy, for your help.
Okay, great.
Have a good one.